I'm your host, Julie Marty Pearson, and I am super excited to bring you this new episode. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this. Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Story of My Pet. Kristen, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to The Story of My Pet.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Julie. I'm so excited.
I wanted Kristen to come and kind of talk about her experience as well as what she does to help animals and their families. But before we go there, I always like to start with, were you always an animal lover and did you grow up with pets?
Yes, I've always been in love. My number one passion has been animals, right? When I was little, they were my best friends. I couldn't wait to go and snuggle with the cat. My mom would say, "Where are you? What are you doing?" I'm snuggling with the cat, hanging with the dog. I wanted a horse so badly. And my family, they were animal lovers, but they weren't farm people. And I had the poster of the horse on the wall, on the closet, like he was right in my bedroom. I dreamed about a horse coming through my window. And then I ended up having a horse when I was 10. And animals have always been just my favorite beings because they're easy to be with. They're easy to understand. They love us unconditionally. And we feel good when we're with them.
Absolutely. Animals are great listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up with pets, it's not something everybody has, but you just can't explain it. Like, how could you not grow up with pets and have that being in your life and that connection? I was the same way growing up, so I totally get it. What was your horse's name?
My first horse, her name was Snowbird.
Oh, I like that.
Apple grape for me. She's just, so special, so wonderful. And I've had many horses since then, but my first horse, she taught me a lot. And she filled a void that I didn't even know was there. But when she came into my life, it was like everything changed. Everything got better. And things weren't bad before, so it just made me feel whole.
I understand. One of my childhood dogs was that for me too. So I totally get what you're saying. It's amazing how I think as adults, we reflect back on some of our pets or our experiences with animals. And at the time, we didn't realize how critical it was for us and who we became. So it sounds like animals were always kind of ingrained in you and your personality and were really an important part of your life.
I mean, I wanted to be the vet. I wanted to be the horse trainer, but that didn't really feel good because I was putting things onto them and having to do things to them that they didn't necessarily want to do.
So, speaking of,
we can't have a Zoom meeting without at least one, maybe two coming by.
All of my kitties are in their afternoon nap time, so we may not see them, but I always love a visitor to join us. I think it's important. This is a pet podcast after all.
Julie, I'm impressed that you have afternoon nap time that actually gets scheduled because, it's kind of a free-for-all here.
But, it's funny because I work from home. My husband doesn't. He gets up very early to go to work. So they get up with him and do stuff and then go back to bed. And they'll wake up a little when I get up and do stuff. And then they seem to really go down until about 2 or 3 when my husband gets home. So they don't always interrupt. But when they do, it's always a great thing to have them join. I love working from home because of that, being able to connect with them. You get to hang out with them.
Yes. And because my work is animal based, they just make everyone feel, my clients and people who come to classes, it makes them, it's how it's supposed to be.
Right. I had originally gone to school to become a clinical psychologist. And if I had done that, I could see having one of my cats with me. It brings people's barriers down and their walls down when you have a pet around to pet or talk to. It's an important part of that kind of process, I would think. So I can imagine that your clients really enjoy that, a connecting piece for that. So speaking of that, let's talk about what you do and how you got into being an animal communicator. What was your journey to have that as your work?
So it's been the most joyful journey, I will say. I always being connected with animals, I knew that I could understand what they wanted and needed, as we all do at different levels. And I knew that there was something about this that could help other animals. It could help people understand their animals better and alleviate some things like frustration, that comes out in bad behavior, comes out in dis-ease in the body, wellness issues, like getting to the root of problems. And early in my life, I just understood these things. And my mom would, I'd say, hey, mom, the dog is telling me that she really doesn't like this food. But it was just a knowing. It was something that I knew. And I'm like, sorry, lady, but she's not going to do anything about it. But I understand you. So that being said,
Right.
was like my dream to be that for animals, to be that voice, to be that bridge. And I have a degree in speech language pathology where I was a communication disorder specialist with people. And I found that the people that I worked with and had wonderful successes with were nonverbal people who I could feel them and understand them telepathically. At the time, one of my horses, his name was Woody, he and I had a wonderful connection, still do. He's no longer in his body, but he said to me so clearly one day, he said, you need to do this for other people. You have to tell other people about it. You have to share this. And I was like, oh gosh, how do I do that? And he said, you need to, or you're going to get sick. Because if I'm doing what you're here to do and you're not living on purpose, then it's going to come out in different ways. I started talking about it. I started teaching people how to do it. I started letting people know that I could help them. And it's turned into a really beautiful business. There are many people on the planet working as professional animal communicators. I teach people, I train people to do the work professionally, but I also work with clients one-on-one with their animals and certain problems and situations that they have coming up. And what I love so much is what changes not only for the animal, but really for the person when they start to realize and really live in relationship with their animal in a way that their animal is telling them things that they need to know, not just what the animal needs, but sometimes it's about what the person needs. It's just a beautiful process. I love it. It's the best way of living. And that's my journey.
When you hear animal communicator, you think of, oh, you're going to tell me what they're thinking. But really, it also is paying attention to what your pet is telling you. But I love what you said is pay attention to what they're trying to get you to notice about yourself. Like I remember I had a cat who was very in tune with me, always wanted to be on my lap. And so it was kind of an annoyance. But there were points where he would come and lay down. Okay, you've done enough of that. You need to just rest. You need to just take a break, And I just love that because I think it's important that we pay attention, right? I think sometimes pets are such an ingrained part of their life that we're not always paying attention to them. So sometimes we have to listen, even if we don't realize how. And it sounds like you're really good at helping people make those connections.
Yeah. And telepathy, it's truly a language, and it's a back and forth exchange. Like just what you're saying, Julie, I really like that example. If you lived with human beings and never really understood what they were trying to tell you, there would be a whole lot of frustration and breakdown within the family dynamic. And animals are so wonderful and full of grace and loving that they don't, tear us apart because they're misunderstood. But we see what can happen. Illnesses go unchecked. Behaviors get escalated into real problems. Here's another one. This is Rosie. We have an opportunity to let them live a fulfilling life too by simply being understood. And I know so much of your work and support is around shelters and helping animals who are in rehoming situations, and it's really powerful and important to be able to understand what they went through, not just what we think they went through. We're putting upon them the emotions that we might have about what they went through, but really hearing from their perspective what they went through and then knowing what they want going forward.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone on the podcast. She adopted a dog from a shelter and she had been returned twice. So when she first met her, she was cowered in the back corner of the cage and very afraid and very uncertain, even had escaped its foster home at one point and was off on the streets for 18 days until they found her. And it was something that would frustrate me so much when I was in the shelter working several years ago was people didn't understand the behaviors that the dogs especially were showing. Like, you don't understand what they've been through. You don't understand the stress of just being in a shelter, whether they were on the street or in a home. The shelter is scary. It's loud. It's noisy. It's unknown. And people don't always give pets the time they need to adjust. So I can imagine you deal with a lot of that, whether it's adoption or rehoming or whatever it may be, knowing how best to help a new pet in their new environment, in their new family to adjust. not always knowing why their behaviors are showing up and if that's something that's going to stay. Is that who they are, or is it something we can work through?
Yes. I just yesterday had a second session with a client who has her own adoption foster process that she does. She really helps a lot of dogs. She's out here. I think she's in Pennsylvania, but near Western New York. And there was a dog who had been returned 3 times from foster situations. She came back to her home to live from foster situations because she would break out of her crate. She was really stressed, high anxiety. And she called me to work with the dog and work with her to understand what this dog is needing. And it turns out we have our ideas of why an animal would do something, but until you really hear from them why it's happening, there could be countless reasons for an animal to be wanting to break out of their crates. Her reason was her purpose was being missed. She was being seen as needy. She is not needy. She wants to be needed. She wants to be the nurturer. She wanted to be the one to take care of someone. And that wasn't the opportunity in these foster homes. And she was seen as this needy dog. So we talked about that. He went back to the latest foster situation, and the people changed their perspective. They started seeing her as more of a leader. They started giving her opportunities to be more independent with the other dogs who were there. She's a completely different dog. Perfect behavior. And they opened up the application process for adoptions. The best family came along, and you can't make it up. It was all because they started seeing her as she truly is. And unfortunately, so many animals in rescue, foster, shelter situations, they have their own emotions. That just being in that space is scary. It's loud. It's confusing. They're feeling, because animals feel, that's how they communicate. They're feeling not just what they've been through, they're feeling what every other animal in this been through.
It's a quick break from this episode to tell you about a company I'm partnering with to help support the podcast. Nuvita is a woman-founded, woman-owned health and wellness company committed to clean, simple, and organic wellness products. Their CBD products are derived from 100% USA-grown hemp, and all products undergo rigorous testing throughout the entire process to ensure they are selling only the quality goods for you. If they won't take it, they won't sell it. They proudly run a USDA-certified organic facility, and all products are certified residual-free, organic, and gluten-free, while most of their products are also vegan. Nuvita has a variety of CBD products, from tinctures to soft gels to gummies to rollers. There's something that can work for everyone. I personally have used Nuvita products for several years and recently started testing some of their new detox products. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, the results have been amazing. One of the reasons I love Nuvita the most is because they have a special pet formula CBD just for our fur babies. I have used their pet formula CBD with my own cats, and they are amazing. They can help your pets with anxiety, pain, inflammation, and recovering from injury. I will never promote a product I haven't used myself or with my pets, and this one I have used for both and highly recommend it. You can go to the link in this episode to shop Nuvita now and use my code Julie10 for 10% off of your order. No minimum purchase required, and every single time you shop Nuvita, you can use my code for 10% off. Thanks for listening. Now back to this episode.
That's so true. And because shelters, my local one that I worked in for a little while, it's big open spaces, actually used to be some kind of car repair shop. So it's big like warehouse buildings that have been made to be a shelter. And it was built to have a dog in each cage in each run. But now there's 2 or 3 in each half run because of how overpopulated the area is. And it is so loud. It's overwhelming smells and noises, and they're constantly cleaning and moving. So it is an overwhelming environment for me as an adult human. So I can't even imagine what it feels like for the animals being brought into that. It's unknown. They don't understand. And they either were on the street or they were in a home. And so no matter what, it's completely different to anything they know. So yeah, people don't realize how hard that is and how much of the energy they take on. And one of the things I was just talking about with them is those first couple of days when they're out of the shelter. Sometimes they won't eat. Sometimes they sleep for days. They're finally in a quiet, more comfortable environment. And I remember one dog got brought back after we had adopted it out on the weekend, and the shelter told us, they said it wasn't active enough. They wanted a dog that would be active with their son. And we're like, it's exhausted. That dog needs time to heal and rest and repair. It could be the best dog for your son. You just have to give it time. So I can see so many instances where what you do can really help people. And ultimately, what is important to us is helping the animal, right?
Yes. You know, it's so the education piece, a couple of things around the education and supporting animals in those situations. Like the more that we can explain to people, it is a process and it is not days, it's not weeks, it's months for an animal to really decompress and become themselves
and feel safe.
It's a beautiful place for animal communication because it can move that along, which just helps everyone understand each other better, the humans, the animals. But regardless, there is that decompressing time and that acclimation time and just healing, which brings me to another thought and concept about the work that I do is I offer healing sessions for animals in shelters because of the overwhelm, because of the trauma, the loss, the mixed emotions, just the overwhelm, all the things that you were explaining, Julie. It's so helpful. And I say to people all the time, you can be that healing vehicle, also that healing person, but just showing up in neutrality and feeling love for them, not dumping love on them. Because sometimes animals can be like, that's a lot. I've already got mine. And now you're trying to love me more. And I'm not ready for that. But just simply accepting however they are. So Plug, who is just kind of shut down, like just being who he is and really seeing them for that, and so many people who work with the fosters and in shelter situations, they get that automatically. And I will say this, sometimes people come in automatically feeling sorry for animals. And that's not helpful either, right? Because if let's say you had gone through something and I saw you and I'm like, oh, Julie, you poor thing. You just look awful. It must be breaking your heart. This is my friend Julia. She's going through a really hard time. Don't talk to her. She's really suffering. You're like, oh my God, I thought I was doing better, but I'm really not.
So true. And we as humans do that to each other for sure. But yeah, we're like transferring either our emotion or what we assume they're feeling when we don't really know. Like you can't put that on them. And definitely showing up neutral, because one of the things we would often say at those events when people are asking or adopting would be like, realize this is not necessarily who they are, like how they act in a shelter or even in a crate at an event somewhere. It's different in different environments. They need time you got to give them time so you can see their true personality and behaviors. But I also know that one of the big things I think all of us struggle with as pet parents is understanding what our pets needs when there's a new behavior that isn't normal or something's going on with them that we're trying to figure out, like, what is this? What's happening? Is it telling us something? Is it something going on within their body? Especially dealing with pets with medical issues. I know we struggled with that a lot. Years ago with one of our cats, Charlie, he would start peeing outside the litter box. And we could not figure, like, why are you doing this? And they tested, they couldn't find anything wrong. I said, maybe he has a urine infection. We went through all these things. And ultimately it turned out either it got worse enough to show up or they found he was diabetic. And so he needed certain things from us in terms of what he ate, where his litter box was. For a couple of years, I've been giving him insulin shots twice a day. So for that experience for me, and I've been through different ones with different animals, but that's what comes to mind it was really hard for us because we knew it meant something was wrong, but trying to figure out what that was and also then communicating with the vet. We know this is wrong. Something has to be going on. And so I can see how invaluable what you do is for those cases, because it's so hard when we can't understand what's happening. Why are you not feeling well? Why are you behaving this way? We want to help them, but we can't always figure it out very easily.
Yeah, exactly. And we can save everybody, right? Like it can save by hearing from the animal and understanding what they're experiencing. It can save everybody a lot of time, a lot of expense, a lot of unnecessary struggle. I think how many times
Frustration on our part and theirs.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I say sometimes, just imagine you were talking to someone and they absolutely could not understand you. And you didn't have hands that could go like this and facial expressions that can show all that.
That's a great floofy tale, though, I have to say.
He is amazing. And this is what I was going to say about that how many animals, the veterinary professionals that I know are amazing. We need veterinarians. They're amazing, right? I'm not in anything negative about them. But when you don't know how many animals have unnecessary antibiotics, unnecessary doses of steroid, unnecessary surgeries,
Charlie, he's always been an anxious being. He doesn't like change or new things. He's just always been that way. And so taking him to the vet was always very difficult. And it got to the point where they had to sedate him to be able to examine him and take urine and do all those things. And I hated putting him through that. One, just putting him through the stress of all of it. But I also know putting your pet under anesthesia is not something I want to do all the time. It's not always great for them. And so like you're saying, it's like, I don't want to put him through stuff he doesn't need if I can figure out what's wrong with him. And I know so many pet parents that have that struggle at different point with their animals because we want to help them, but we also have to test to figure out what's wrong. So there's this like kind of cyclical process.
Yeah. Jill, you mentioned something there too that I think this is helpful for people is we think about communicating with animals to understand what they want us to know. There's also the other flip side of that responsibility is conveying clearly as communicators ourselves. Each and every one of us communicates with our animals what we want them to know and understand. And in those situations that are high stress or they're anxious, creates worry in us, what we are sending them in terms of concept and messages and emotion, we have to be really careful. Right? Because if you have an anxious animal, I'm not saying this was you, but what happens, right?
I will be the first to admit that I did not always handle it. I would get so frustrated. I'd be chasing him around the house. There was no good in the situation.
And that's normal. And I'm thinking about my kids when they were little, same kind of thing. But it's the same thing. Our energy transfers to them. However, our messages transfer to them. And if I'm feeding off of what they are thinking or what I think they're thinking, he thinks he's going to die. He thinks he's going to get locked in a cage, never come out. Right. Whelming there with the smells and all the stuff. Like I'm just feeding that fear. And I have an example. If you have a cat who scratches your chairs or your couch or whatever, and you say to them, don't you dare scratch that chair. Do not scratch that chair. And in my mind, what am I picturing? I'm picturing him going over to the nice green upholstery and tearing it apart. He's saying, scratch the chair. You want me to the chair and me with the claw. So I'll scratch the chair. Okay, got it. We're right. These things by not being clear about what we want. Animals do so beautifully when we get clear. And that's one of the things communicating with animals. It is about the animals. It's about helping them and their people, but it helps us as humans develop into saying what we really need. Think about what we really want. And as human beings, we don't do that.
Oh my God. The world would be a much better place if we all just said explicitly and simply what we need or want or whatever.
How many times have you gone to someone and said, no, I'm not upset with you. I'm not upset.
I'm fine. Yeah. And also as humans, we learn as we get older how to read people's faces and body language and all those things that give us clues if it's not in tune with what someone's saying. And so with pets, we have to do that too. It's funny. One of my cats, she's not super lovey, doesn't get on my lap. She'll lay around my legs and things like that. But when I take her to the vet, she wants to be in my arms with her head under my arm. And that's where she feels safe, right? And so sometimes they're telling us things that we may not realize that is different in different situations or environments. And I think with pets, a lot of times it's vets because there's a lot of anxiety around that. But even I know when we moved from our apartment into our house, that was a transition for our cats. They had only ever lived in this apartment. They knew the space. We brought them in a new place. It's stressful. So there's a lot of changes that can happen for our pets that we may not realize can be affecting their behavior, how they're eating, all those kind of things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So much. One of the things I always said, and it's come up in a lot of the interviews on the podcast is, what if that was you? What if you had a home for your whole life that was a certain way, looked a certain way, smelled a certain way, had certain people, and all of a sudden you were taken from there into some new place you didn't understand, and then from there another new place or another new place? Like, you're not going to just be okay in a day or two. You're going to take time to investigate, understand, get to know. And so I would say, as a person, would you be able to respond that quickly? And so I think I can understand how much of your work is really getting people to put themselves in the animal's place and understand what they've been through and how they're feeling and how that is a part of their behavior or whatever it may be.
I love that, Julie. Absolutely. It's about learning compassion. And, it's this world, we all practice compassion.
Empathy is not in abundance in our world at the moment, for sure.
And empathy and compassion are different things. Also, compassion, because, compassion is it. And the animals, they teach us this, but it's also, I love this aspect. So often people have great tolerance for animals, and we tolerate differences between ourselves and our animals. We tolerate idiosyncrasies in our animals. Some people don't. Some people have breed bias. So many people that I meet who have beliefs about other human beings are all inclusive about animals. And I'm like, we are all the same. Animals are just like us. They don't have hands that do this unless they are raccoons or primates. And they teach us acceptance. They teach us about each other. They teach us about ourselves. And I call it, the animals are leading the underground peace movement. They really are,
And, it's funny because some people have compassion for animals when they don't for people. But then there's also people that don't have compassion for animals. It's like, this is not just an object or food or whatever it may be. And that's always something I've struggled with since I was little with eating meat, was like, but no, it's a being. It's an animal. It's not just a product on a shelf. So I totally get what you're saying, that sometimes we can be so compassionate for our animals, but we can't for humans. But then sometimes people don't realize how much you have to listen to your animals and give them what they need. But you said something which is huge in rescue and shelters everywhere, is breed bias, where people want a certain look or a certain breed because, well, all golden retrievers are like this. And it's like, that may be true, but every animal is different, right? Every animal is coming from a different mixture of who their parents were, whether they are breed specific or not. And so I'm sure you deal a lot with, they expect a breed to be a certain way and they're not. And so they come to you and say, fix it. Like, why aren't they doing what a shepherd should do or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And, we can create those projections again, those things that we project onto animals where people assume that, all labs are going to love the water, or all thoroughbred horses are, high strung and need a ton of exercise and eat a lot of food, or, pit bulls, that the bully breeds have certain tendencies. And do we want to say that about people? I mean, that's one of the problems we're in right now.
We love to, obviously stereotype, but it's also, I think there's comfort in people or animals fit in boxes. This is where you fit and this is where, but that's not how any of us are. We all have idiosyncrasies. We all change as we get older. Same with pets, same with people. And, I think that's a frustration for many of us trying to educate or help people through something. But we also have to have compassion for the fact that people are learning too. We can't assume they know how to take care of a pet if they've never had one before. So there's also that type of compassion and understanding that, wait, you don't get it because you don't know how. I can help you with that.
Yes. I mean, I just have loved over the past, 30 years of doing this work, the changes, the growth, the expansion that has happened in the world of living with animals. I don't call animals pets because there's this concept of animal liberation, right? Seeing them as their own individual beings. But the whole process of living an interspecies lifestyle, my animals are my people, just like my human animals are my people. We are all animals. And one of the things, Julie, that I think is so cool, when people come and they take classes or they come for consultations and they start seeing their animals in a different way, seeing them for more of who they are, their appreciation, acceptance, and love of other species starts to expand as well. People who hated spiders or were terrified of snakes, they'll say to me, I used to smash the bugs or kill the flies or the wasps or smash a spider. And they said, I can't do it anymore. I know, because they're just woke up. They're just in a different body.
And it's funny, that makes me think when I was little, I already knew that. That was what was in my head when we'd see cows. I'd be like, oh, I want to pet them. And it's wait, why don't you get that? Like sometimes it's innate in us, but other people don't have it. And we're like, I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I just taught a class today, and one of the animal teachers was a dog who was showing us things through his perspective, right? And when we can just look through another's perspective, it's kind of like going on vacation. Seeing the world differently.
Right.
The food tastes different. The sounds are different. The experience is different. And we learn. We can learn from them about ourselves and the things that we think are true. Like you said, I love that. I've been talking about this lately too. We as human beings, as human animals, like to put things in boxes. This is a good box. This is a bad box. This is a box I like. This is a box I don't like. And it's so limiting. So limiting. It's limiting to others. It's limiting to ourselves. It's extremely limiting to animals.
Yes. Yeah. It made me think of when I meet people or talk to people in a variety of ways, but they'll be like, they have to say, oh, I don't like cats. I'm a dog person, or vice versa. And I'm like, and it's funny because growing up, I only had dogs. My mom always said she was allergic, which she was. There was one time we went to someone's home and they had long-haired cats, and oh God, her face, like she reacted very badly. But so we never had cats. And then as an adult, I got my first kitten. And when I put him down on the floor at her house, she like jumped on a chair. And I went, okay, this is not just an allergy. And so we've decided that her brother probably did something tormenting with a cat at one point, and she's, held that. But she's become a nana now to multiple cats. She pets them and learns about them and asks me questions. So she's been opened up by my experience and her learning about cats and realizing, oh, they are pets like our dogs were. They're beings that interact with us and have personalities and all these things. So I've seen her expand in that way by me opening up to something new. And so I think that is so important to all of us as humans is you can't say negative or put people in boxes if you've never experienced them or their country, their language, their culture, their food, whatever it may be, because we don't know things we haven't experienced or been a part of. And I definitely see that with animals where people are like, oh, no, I only like this or that. If you're limiting your experience and what you could be open, like I love my cats. I love dogs too, but I am a cat person. They like naps and snacks. They are my people. My husband one day brought home a baby possum that had been found inside a classroom. He's a carpenter for a school district. And he was afraid something bad would happen to it if he didn't take it home. William the possum lived with us for 9 months. What I loved about it is I learned so much about possums. You always hear negative things like they're bad creatures. They'll hurt my dog or cat or whatever. And first of all, they're very cat-like in a lot of their behaviors. And so for me, that experience made me realize I thought possums were bad. I thought we wouldn't want them. It could hurt. But they're not. They're actually wonderful creatures who eat things that we don't want, like termites and other bugs. They don't carry diseases, which many people think they do. And it also made me realize that I don't always have an open mind to things, even within the world of animals that I've always loved. So I can imagine for you how transformative what you do with people can be for them to kind of put their wall down, but also open themselves up to learning something new.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's healing all the way around, right?
Oh, my husband loved that possum. And I always joked, that possum eats better than I do. Like, he got his scrambled eggs with shells in it because he needed that for some nutrients that he loves learning, he loves research, but he loves taking care of different animals. And I think sometimes people need to stop and step back and allow themselves that, to learn, to grow, to realize that whatever animal is in their life may need something different than they would even know to give them. So I could see how that would be an important part of the work you do with people.
That made me think of something, just stopping to respect. What do you need? I can respect what you need. And herein comes with the animals we live very closely with. And sometimes God love them. They allow us to kind of have our way with them when they're like, I really need to be alone. And we're like, oh, I love you. I love you. And they take it. And other times they will scratch you or bite you or move away. And people don't realize you didn't ask. If I came up to you and I love you, I would want to hug you, but you don't want me touching your hair and mushing your face. And it's like, Kristen, what are you doing? Stop it.
That's so true. So you can't really tell now because it's brushed out, but I have naturally curly hair. And I can't tell you how many times people have come up and touched my hair without asking. I'm like, I'm sorry. And I've never had human kids, but I assume it would be the same when people want to touch a woman's bump when she's pregnant. It's like, guys, we have to ask that this is our body. We don't want to be touched, but then we do that to our animals. We do that to them, assuming they want to be pet or scratched or picked up. I've had to learn, especially with my cats, some cats like it, some cats don't. There are certain spots on each of our cats they like rubbed more than the others. We learned these little things with dogs I've had. There's certain things they like, but people don't always give them that space to figure out what that is. They don't ask permission or say, do you like this? And if they don't, then maybe you need to not do it anymore.
This brings up the, I'm going to say the wrong word, anthropomorphizing animals and assuming that they like something because they are appearing to like it.
Right.
When, videos of, like the dog and the baby climbing on the dog and pulling on the dog's ears and everybody's like, oh, this dog is so wonderful until he's not. And there are so many signs. So while communication, absolutely telepathic communication, if you can feel, okay, this animal he's tolerating, he's not liking. But there are so many other ways that animals try to tell us it's about respect, just like saying that just because he lets it happen doesn't mean that dog likes the pencils up his nose and the baby pulling on his ear and climbing all over him. It's not natural dog behavior. Has puppyhood. That's not normal. They're going to say, shut it.
And it's so funny. Growing up, we had a golden retriever, Goldie. She was an amazing dog. My dad found her at our shelter. And they think she was 2 or 3 and she was fully trained, sit, stay, all that. So somebody lost an amazing dog. But she was so great. I was like 6, maybe around that age when we got her. She would let me put a blanket on her. And when I talk about what a great dog she was, it's like, wait, did she like that I did it? Or did she just allow it to happen? She was a very social dog and loved being around people when we had parties and things. But as an adult now, I think about maybe she didn't like it when we let that toddler crawl on her. It wasn't that she was a good dog and enjoyed it. It was that she was tolerant of it. And we never pushed her to the point of her saying, no, I will not do that.
Yeah. And they're all different. That's the thing.
Right.
They're different, just as people. And that's one of the reasons that I really take my work, obviously, very seriously. And teaching people, I take it very seriously because worse than being misunderstood is being misrepresented. Happening in our world right now, too. I don't like being spoken for or assuming that these are my beliefs or my thoughts or my feelings. And sometimes people think that they know what an animal feels or is thinking, or is needing or wanting. And it's frustrating, just imagine being spoken for. And I'll give you an example. Like I'll work with a family of humans and animals, and they'll introduce their animals to me. And they'll say, oh, this is Joe. He's 11. He's a mix, like a Sheltie mix or something. And he's a rescue. And then they'll say, and this is Fluffy. And she's kind of aloof. She's actually really kind of dim and aloof. I don't know. She doesn't even like being here. And then this is Sherry. And Sherry is, she's life of the party. And she takes care of everybody, blah, blah. So then I tune in with Joe and Fluffy and Sherry. And I get that Joe is like he's so sick and tired of being called a rescue. And I'll say, when did you get him? Oh, we got him when he was 2. I'm like, okay, that was 9 years ago. He's over being rescued. He's
Right.
That's like me saying, this is my friend Julie, and she failed 4th grade.
But she's okay now. My God, that is so true.
Why are we labeling our animals as rescues? It perpetuates.
There is so much negativity in the world about rescue or shelter dogs. And it's like, I've talked about with so many people who volunteer in shelters, this idea that only bad dogs or animals go to shelters. It's like, there are 10 million reasons why animals end up in shelters, and 5% of it is because they're bad or something. And it's so true.
Things happened to them, right? Like,
right.
Trot out of their backyard and they say, I am so done at this house. I am looking for a new beginning, right? And they haven't felt like they were rescued or saved or sheltered. Right. They were just on to the next best thing.
That is so true. The 3 cats we have right now, 2 of them are rescues. In that, one we found in our yard and one we found in my parents' yard. And then Pumpkin was a foster who we adopted from the shelter. But they've lived their whole lives in this home, 10 years, 16 years, 2 years. They're our family now. So I can totally see what you mean, that when we talk about them in that way, those labels don't help anyone and don't help us to really understand them, because yes, maybe they were rescued at one point, but now they're in this environment. Now they're a part of a family. That label doesn't have any meaning anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I know.
We only have a few minutes left, so I want to mention the rescues that you had shared with me. The first one was the Akron Rescue Cats. Can you talk about that?
They are a wonderful organization here in Western New York. They're a non-for-profit, as most rescues are, and they just do a beautiful job with cats. They have cats in an active housing situation, and then they have people who will foster them in their homes. And I'm currently fostering 2 kitties here, Maddie and Reese, from that organization. And I adopted our kitty Elphaba. She's absolutely beautiful. If I picked her up right now, she would jump away, but she's sleeping in the sun next to me. And they're just a wonderful organization. They really go all in on their animals. And I appreciate their work. I respect their work. And I'll just share a quick story. There was a kitten who a friend of mine is fostering from Akron Rescue Cats, and she ended up having some pulmonary insufficiency because of the diaphragm, the way that her diaphragm developed. And she needed surgery to correct it, or she could always have problems and the problems could get worse. And the shelter didn't. They took her for a consult. She was a candidate, and the shelter said, we're all in. And so they really give their all to the animals, to the cats who come in.
I love that. It's so important. People don't realize how hard it can be to get medical help for fosters or rescue cats or dogs. So when I hear about organizations that like really go above and beyond, I love that. And we will put links to Akron Rescue Cats in the show notes for anybody who wants to learn more, follow, support them. Even just sharing on social media can help a lot of these smaller organizations just gain more visibility and help specifically. Especially fostering. Oh, fostering is so important. I mean, it's important for all animals, but I found with cats, it's really important because most typical shelters have cats in cages, right? They don't have rooms where they get to roam around. I love it when I hear a rescue does like a coffee bar or a cafe where the cats can move around and meet people, but that doesn't happen a lot. So fostering is really important because it allows them to be more comfortable, but it also allows people fostering to learn more, to get to know them and their personality so they can find a good home.
Absolutely. Like you said, an animal who lives in a box in a very congested, confusing space, you don't know what you're going to get when they come out.
Yeah.
They need time.
I wouldn't be happy living in a box.
No, they need time. And yeah, so fostering is really super important.
Okay, so I want to mention the other organization you told me about was Buddy's Second Chance Rescue. I'm assuming Buddy is dogs, but I'm sure it could be any animal.
Nope, you got it right. You're very intuitive. It's a dog rescue. They bring dogs up from Georgia and Texas. They bring them up from the South, where there are a lot of high kill shelter situations. They bring them up here, and they have fosters. Actually, this is really cool. The fosters choose the dogs that they will take foster. So there's already a connection. And then they come in and they foster them. They don't have a standing shelter situation. So they're fostered in a home. And that's how we adopted our dog, Fisher,
Okay.
sleeping over there on the couch behind me. But just such a really dedicated people who I thought I knew, right? Who I wanted and who was going to be. They saved me from myself because the dog that I thought that was meant for me, she was really highly reactive to cats. And I said, I can handle it. I can handle it. I can train it out of her. I can love it out of her. No, I would have had a dog attached to my hip for the rest of her life. And, they knew their stuff and they really held firm. And they said, we think we have a dog for you. He loves kitties. At his foster's house, he snuck into the cat room and was curled up on the cat beds. The cats. And I said, I'll meet him. And they brought him. I was like, love at first sight. And best dog.
Rescues that do that work, that really put in the time to get to know the animals and make good matches are so important. And the thing is, shelters, especially ones run by cities and governments, don't have time or staffing to be able to do that. So I always say, if that's not right for you, find a rescue. Find a rescue that's going to spend the time with you making the right match. A second chance rescue. It's also really important because I live in California, which is very much like Texas and California are two of the worst states in our country for overpopulation and euthanasia rates. So one of the ways my area and others does is we transport them to states like yours where there is less overpopulation. So there are more available homes and more fosters available. And one of my rescues here, Marley's Mutts, they've already transported 1,000 dogs this year. And so now they're asking for help to get it repaired so they can keep doing it. So I love that you brought that up because it's so important for people to realize that organizations actually do that. They help with transportation. There are areas that are lower impacted, so they bring them there. And it's so important to support those rescues too, because if it wasn't for them, a lot of us who are so overcrowded wouldn't have spaces to send dogs or cats. And we need people in those areas to foster because a lot of them are foster only and they have a whole team or system of fosters. So I love that's what they do. And we will put links to both of these amazing organizations in the show notes. People can check them out, follow them, learn more, and support them if you can. Oh, I love that. That's perfect. A dog and a cat rescue organization to share. So for whatever you want to support, you have an option.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kristen, so much for being here and sharing your expertise as well as your story and how you help parents and their pets, their animals, their family. I've met with so many people lately that are dealing with grief and loss, whether it's a human or an animal, who are struggling with anticipatory grief, with older animals in their lives. So I can see how important your work is. And again, if you want to get in contact with Kristen, all of her information is in the show notes. Please reach out to her on social or via her website, and you can learn more about her classes and the work she does. I think you have a network of animal communicators, so you probably might even be able to help them find someone local if that is something they're looking for. So I appreciate your time and getting to share your story with my listeners.
Thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Story of My Pet podcast. I appreciate you listening and supporting the podcast. And if you haven't already, wherever you are listening to this episode, make sure you hit follow or subscribe and leave us a rating or review. All of that helps the podcast grow and get to even more listeners and help us educate and advocate for animals in need around the world. If you haven't done so already, make sure to check out our new YouTube channel, Story of My Pet Podcast. Again, hit the subscribe button. Give us some likes and comments on our videos, and that will help the podcast grow on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here, and much love to you and your pet. Want to help your pet feel their best naturally? Meet Miko's Choice, a small woman-owned company creating high-quality CBD products for all animals. That's right, dogs, cats, even horses, goats, and pigs. Their formulas are super potent, so you use less and get better results. Everything's grown and made in the USA and double tested for purity. To learn more or purchase products, you can visit their website, mikoschoice.com, and use code StoryOfMyPet for 15% off your purchase.